When Suriname was about to become independent from the Kingdom of the Netherlands, around 35%, maybe more, of the population migrated to the Netherlands and retained Dutch citizenship. They did not want to become a Surinamese with a Surinamese passport. Suriname became independent in 1975. In the years before that, there were conflicts. The Netherlands was obliged to invest more in the country. But many of the ministers didn't want to. So the ministers came with a plan to get rid of Suriname. And many of the people that lived there, not all, absolutely not, saw what was going on. So they realized, okay, the Dutch want to get rid of us, the Dutch state. We're going to become independent, but we don't have anything to function independently. So we have the option to remain Dutch. If we migrate to Netherlands, we are going to do that. So many people took their families with them to the Netherlands, and since then you have a huge Surinamese community living in the Netherlands. They're Dutch people. Some may have retained Surinamese citizenship afterwards as a dual nationality, but back then in the 1970s, people saw through what was going on. There were folks that were naive and thought, yay, independence, we're going to become our own nation, blah, blah, blah. But folks would look at the bigger picture and realize, this is going wrong. So they were alert. And those that came to the Netherlands, what they did was a smart move, because shortly after independence, you had military people taking over, and there were massacres that occurred. Things went out of hand. So those people will look at the bigger picture. They saw bad times coming, and they anticipated the bad times. I'm using that as an example for you, for this teaching. Christ told us to be alert. I'm saying it now, but Christ commanded us to be alert. Why do you think Christ tells us to be alert? It's because in this world we'll have tribulation. Even unbelievers have tribulation, okay? But amongst the unbelievers, you have the pagans who are alert. Don't you know that often when things are being covered up, it's pagans that reveal that something doesn't add up? When you look at many of the conspiracy theorists, and many of those folks who are whistleblowers, often they are people with a pagan background. They adhere to some pagan philosophy. They pay attention, they see through stuff. Common folks don't see through stuff because they have no intention of seeing through stuff. Believers ought to be the ones that are alert, and there are believers that are alert, don't get me wrong. But way too often, believers adhere to what church is telling them, to what the pagan pastor is teaching them, instead of adhering to what Christ said, to what the Lord said, to what the Lord told them. Look, another example here. Let's say now that I'm going to use you as an example. I don't know whether you're male or female, so I'm going to use a male example now. Okay, I'm just use a male example. This can come for a female also. Let's say you live in a neighborhood and you have a job somewhere. You do your job every day. You clean up afterwards, you go home. You do what you have to do. You don't bother anyone else. Later, a co-worker of yours who's about to leave because he found another job tells you, Jeffrey, these people here are complaining about you. That your desk is messy and all of that. And even came to me to complain. And let's say you, Jeffrey, think, why are people dumping at this coworker? And then the coworker was about to tell you, Jeffrey, I would inform the supervisor about this because this ain't right. But let's say now that after that colleague departs, there is no, there is no complaints anymore. Because indeed, you did notice before this colleague informed you, people were looking weird at you, but after the colleague left, it's all ease. A common individual would say, ah, you see, it's all right, it's over. It's resolved. But a pagan, or maybe not even a pagan, someone who looks a bit further would tell you, Jeffrey, if people were upset with how things went in their lives and they didn't want to face their own lives, but they preferred to dump on you, don't think they're going to stop just like that without you taking any actions against them. Someone plotted against you, something bad is coming. And if you're a believer, you should sense immediately that something ain't right. So a pagan would sense quickly something is wrong, and he would leave that place as soon as possible. He doesn't care that he doesn't get paid for the half of the month. He'll rather lose a half month's wages than that his life is in danger. What often happens with churchgoers, I'm calling them churchgoers because I'm not certain whether they're believers or not. Churchgoers, they often stay because every Sunday they go to church, they get boosted again, and they hold on to the false promises of the Babylon church. So they keep going to their job. And the Babylon church teaches them to suck up all the abuse, to be Christ-like, so they do it. Then you hear later that that churchgoer has cancer, that churchgoer may have an accident at the job, or something very bad happens. And then people at church are going to come together to pray about it. But then you will have people like atheists who will look at the situation and say, hold on a minute. So this guy, Jeffrey, he had a job. Okay, it's working well, yeah. He had a job. He did his work well. He didn't bother anyone. Yet people targeted him. Why didn't the supervisor deal with it? Don't tell me he works at an office, which is like a village. Everyone knows each other, and the supervisors or the superiors are not aware of what's going on. Don't tell me that. So the atheist may look at it and think, hold on a minute, something isn't right here. The boss or the superiors may be involved in this plot. The atheist may think that. The pagan will look at it as follows. Maybe the atheist also. They will look at it like, okay, you go to this building every weekend, every Sunday, because you serve the Most High God. Why didn't the Most High God inform you that there were people plotting against you? Why didn't that Holy Spirit that you guys shout at in that church, why didn't he inform you to leave? Or why didn't you use the power of the Holy Spirit to trample upon the dangers coming against you? If you're a weak believer, then you would just leave. But if you're a strong believer and you claim to follow the Most High, you will tremble upon all danger that comes against you, because Christ said, I'll give you power to trample upon scorpions and serpents. That's how the pagan would look at it. Maybe even some atheists. They will not look at it with a naive eye. They will examine the situation and they will see a lot that didn't add up. And you know, that's the issue with churchgoers often. They don't look at the bigger picture. They have a tunnel vision. I have only one hand to show this, but I'm showing they have a tunnel vision. They only see this. Go to church every Sunday, and from Monday to Saturday, you have to endure. Then on Sunday, you're happy again. Then you go through the week again, enduring everything until you die and you go to heaven. That is what pagan Christians are into. That's the tunnel vision. That's what they see. They don't see anything else around them. And that's why they are an easy target. That's why you have many of those churchgoers who suffer from depression, suicidal tendencies. They suffer from financial hardship. They suffer so much that you begin to think, hold on a minute. Christ said you will face tribulation, but Christ said, be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. So anyone who looks at that situation will say, hold on a minute. Christ said you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. If that's the case, that means that you should have victory. We should expect to see tribulation coming towards you, but we also must see you overcome it. And not only that, isn't it written that by stripes you're healed? Isn't it written that Christ took our sicknesses upon himself? If that's the case, and if in both Old and New Testament physical health is promised, that means that no sickness should occur with believers. And Christ said, I came so that they will have life and life more abundantly. I've come, that's what Christ said, that's correct English. So understand this. If he came for you to have life and life more abundantly, so life in abundance, that means that poverty shouldn't exist with you. Sickness shouldn't exist. Those two things should not exist for a believer. I hope you follow me here now. So, if that's the case, and it's the case because it's documented in Scripture, that means that anyone who operates in sickness and poverty, they're not walking by faith. They're not Christ-centered. They're not in agreement with Christ. Because if you are in agreement with Christ, you'll walk in the power. And walking in the power automatically crushes the darkness that seeks to get a hold of you. And even unbelievers will be able to witness this. Often you don't realize it yourself, but that's what happens when you walk by faith. Oh, let me sit there for a while. So, about being alert, pay attention to the signs of the times. The believer that walks by faith is alert. Not only are they alert, they are very active. And because they are active, demons, as well as predatory human beings, are very careful with how they treat them. But if you have a churchgoer that doesn't agree with Christ, he just goes there for tradition, just feel good, he is an easy target. He or she is an easy target. I want you to think for a moment. Think about the example I've given unto you, not of Suriname, but of that Jeffrey and at the workplace. If Jeffrey walked by faith, really walked by faith, he would have sensed, even before the contention arrived, that something is wrong. He would have faced some psychic attack or something. And because of that, he would have been more alert. And when he's more alert, he'll practice more decreeing and declaring. He'll be more in prayer, more in fastings. He'll be more armed. He'll be armed better, I mean. So he would be at a job, and probably he wouldn't even know what's going on, but he's covered. And when he finds out, he's covered anyway. So when he leaves unharmed. Churchgoers often, they get harmed, even they're harmed, they don't even notice it. It's only when it's fatal or they're about to die that they realize something is wrong. Yet they go to church every Sunday. I hope you see clearly now that something doesn't add up here. So Christ wants us to be alert. Not paranoid that you keep looking around you, expecting danger from every side. No. Hold on. Not suspicious in a toxic way that you suspect the worst. No, because that's fearful. Christ wants us to be sensitive to what's going on around us. Because it's by being sensitive to what's going on around us that we are able to anticipate what's going on. Let's go to the Old Testament for an example. Let's talk about Joseph. By the way, don't get me wrong with this video. God will not inform you about everything that's about to happen to you. Okay? In the example I've given, where the atheist or the pagan are asking questions, that's how they think. Those are the type of questions they would ask. Because they don't have the understanding that God operates in a different way than they do. With Joseph, God didn't tell him everything that was about to happen to him, because quite some bad stuff happened to him. But when Joseph was informed about the 7 years of abundance, followed by the 7 years of famine, because the Lord informed him about the dream the Lord gave to Pharaoh, Joseph realized that it was God setting things up in his favor. He didn't know what God was setting up for him. God didn't tell him. Okay? So he told Pharaoh, there's going to be abundance for 7 years, a lot of abundance, but after that there was going to be famine. And he gave a suggestion to build storehouses to save some of the abundance of the 7 years, so that when the famine comes, they are prepared. Pharaoh saw the wisdom of this man and handed the government over to him. Only when it comes to the throne, Pharaoh was above Joseph. We know that. A lot of churches talk about Joseph. God can work things out in your favor. Yes, Joseph also complied with what the Holy Spirit was doing. Joseph didn't sit around and think, okay, Lord, I'm ready. Or Joseph didn't just go through bad stuff and think, oh, well, it's just the way it is. No, Joseph was alert. Let me say like this. He was quite young when he went through all that tribulation. So he wasn't alert. He wasn't that alert all the time. Because he didn't see it coming that he would end up in jail, though, to Potiphar's wife. Even though, when you read the account, she was sexually chasing him so often, so he should have seen, okay, this is going wrong one day, I need to get out of here. So he wasn't that alert, but once he ended up in jail, he realized, okay, I need to be very alert now. So when the opportunity came for him to act, he acted. Okay? And that's how believers ought to be. When the moment comes, you act. Sometimes you can make the moment happen. In other cases, the moment comes to you. About Joseph. Many people focus on the fact that he ended up as a prime minister or the viceroy of Egypt. But a lot of folks don't consider what came along with it. Think about this. He was a foreigner. He was not a Hamite. So he was not a descendant of Ham. He was a Semite. Even though his skin color was similar to that of the Egyptians, he was a foreigner. He learned the Egyptian language. He did not worship the Egyptian gods. So he was an outsider. In Egypt, there were many rich folks or noble folks that competed for positions. And now you have this guy who was a slave, because he was a slave, remember. And this slave was convicted. So Joseph was an ex-convict. Whether he committed a crime or not, doesn't matter. For society, he was a convict. He was an outcast. So now you have this foreign ex-convict that leads the country, and he's above all those rich and noble Egyptians. Do you seriously think that all those noble and rich Egyptians were happy with this? No, they weren't. However, Joseph went through betrayal as a slave when Potiphar's wife lied on him and he ended up in jail. So Joseph had experience that he had to be alert. So what happened in his past worked out in his benefit, that now he operated in a much more practical manner. That also implies walking by faith, that you reflect back on the past and examine it and process what happened. This whole idea of forgive and forget, it's not biblical. It's not biblical at all. The same you see with Joseph when he encountered his brothers who sold him into slavery. He didn't just reconcile with them. He went slowly with them to see whether or not they've repented. And it's only when he saw that they had remorse and that they were open to move forward that he revealed himself unto them. And even then, things went slowly till things got better. Because Joseph looked at the bigger picture and realized that even though his brothers did him dirty, the Lord tolerated it to happen, and the Lord used what they did to him to work out for God's glory, so that Joseph would provide for them later on. Because Joseph realized that he and his brothers are meant to bring forth the nation of Israel. Therefore, Joseph realized, okay, I can't hold a grudge against those people because God's plan is more important. And God brought me to this position so that I could preserve their lives, so that God's plan for the future would continue. Because Joseph was aware of the promise made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Joseph was centered on Christ. He was Christ-centered. That's why things worked out in his favor despite what happened. Okay? So a lot of folks talk about Joseph, but do they have a similar attitude as Joseph? Just think about all I said in this video. I didn't make this video to point the finger at you and look down on you. I made this video to open your eyes. During this lifetime, until Christ returns, and for some of you till you depart from your temporal body, you'll need to be alert. Because the enemy goes around as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. He can't devour everyone, but will seek whom he can devour. Demons were under Satan do a similar thing. Predators are around, and predators come after believers, even when they know they're going to lose. And then you have enablers of predators who make it all possible. You live in an antichrist world. You live in a world where they rage against the Most High. So, the Most High told you to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. He said, I gave you power to trample upon the whole camp of the enemy. That includes scorpions and serpents, which are demonic powers and demonic forces. Are you walking in that power? Are you? You certainly should walk in that power, and that includes also being alert, not only for danger, but also for opportunities. Let's say that, just an example given to you, let's say that there is a depression going on financially. By now you should know that financial depressions are caused by the elite rulers themselves. So when you have a financial depression going on, and you realize that the price of land drops, then realize, oh, it's very cheap to purchase land, then also know that once the recession is over, the price for land will increase. So what do you do then? You walk by faith with decrees and declarations. You allow the Spirit to guide you, so that you will purchase land. And once you've purchased the land, afterwards the economy will recover and the price of land will go up, but then you already have a lot of land. So now you are a landlord, and as a landlord you can start your own farm or your vineyard, or you can construct a hostel over there. So now you have economic options. So now you become economically relevant to the community, and now you use that economic relevance to glorify Christ. So now the abundance that Christ gave unto you, you invest it in the community, and more people are led to Christ, and Christ is glorified. That also implies to walk in the power, being alert. Well, I don't want to make this video too long. I just want to encourage you. Walk by faith and agree with Christ.